All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I'm Dan, the part-time Avenger. That is Mark, the resident Jedi.
Hello there. Today we decided to dive into a little bit of an off the beaten path movie, but it's about podcasts. So, we're down for it, right? Because who doesn't love a good snooty podcast movie? Today we're going to talk about the new emerging BJ Novak classic, Vengeance.
The new emerging BJ Novak classic. Yes, this movie came out in 2022, already a classic according to the resident Jedi. But this movie I actually saw on Amazon Prime. I saw like a little trailer of it. It was one of those like on the beginning of the windows. I'm like, oh, cool. That seems interesting. I never ended up watching it. I've been wanting to watch it. And when you said that we should watch Vengeance, I was like, what? We already watched Batman. What are you talking about? And I put two and two together when he said the BG Novak film. I was like, oh yeah, that did look good. And as I was searching for it, I just imagined it would be like right there on the front of the screen, like it should be for a movie podcast host that's watching a movie, right?
Yeah.
They should cater to us. Amazon, what the fuck? But I was flipping through multiple movies named Vengeance, and one of them was like a Nicolas Cage movie, and I was thinking like, man, I should really just fuck this episode and just watch the Nicolas Cage movie instead. So but no, I did watch it. How did you
Wow.
watch
So are we just going to have a whole month of Vengeance movies? Like we could go on a Vengeance tear.
it? Yeah, I think there's like
Vengeance
a Scott
episode
Adkins
2.
movie, there's the Nicolas Cage one, there's a lot.
No, I ran into this trailer a while back too, and I didn't remember when it came out or what. And I was on a long flight, and I had run out of movies to watch, and I just was like flipping through stuff, and I was like, "What's this?" And I was reminded that I saw the trailer. And I was like, "Oh, watch this." I remember thinking it'd be okay, and no. It was the only movie I watched on the flight that I didn't fall asleep during, so it was positive. Shout out Lord of the Rings trilogy.
So true facts about myself, I've never watched any of the Lord of the Rings, and I've told you this before, but I don't know if I ever will. If
It's
anything,
okay, dude.
if anything would get me to watch it, it's this podcast. But
Yeah.
I've seen too many Kevin Smith movies where they just rip on it, and so I don't know if I need to. Overall, BJ Novak, so he directed this movie. A lot of people
Directed, like is pretty he this is his baby, if you will.
So this centers all around Texas. And I really think that they just kind of make a big deal of what the rural part of the country, and even you can kind of tell that there's a little bit of the stereotype of the southern Texas average person, and
So
they really dive deep into this.
yeah, they do. And you know how I feel about Texas. But before we dive into Texas, I need to take a minute and just ask you about the pretentious nature of the BJ Novak character in this movie as a snooty, like English major podcast trying to define life kind of guy. Do you see yourself as that kind of podcaster?
100%. 100%.
I noticed the non-corrective lenses today. I believe you.
No, I would say that I'm not looking for purpose. I'm looking for entertainment and distraction. So very unlike BJ Novak's character in this movie, he's really trying to find purpose with a podcast. You know what I'm doing, man? I'm trying to find a little bit of escape from our normal everyday working lives, and be able to talk some shit about stuff that I like, stuff that I don't like, and stuff that I don't understand. As some certain people that comments on our social media say that we do. So I'm all for it.
I'm right there with you, Dan, and it is a blessing to do this podcast with you. It's like a gift from above. But I definitely think that I've met people like that, and I don't know how you feel about them. I don't know if you've met people that are so analytical that it gives you a migraine. But oh god, it is the beginning of this movie. They frame the BJ Novak character in a way that I can't wait for him to get slapped in the face.
That whole John Mayer, BJ Novak opening scene and conversation with each other where they just keep on saying 100%. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? Why do they keep on saying that? And then at the end of the conversation, they're just repeat back and forth 100%, 100%, 100%. Like, that is such a phrase that's in our lingo now because of, I mean, if you listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, if you listen to any of his friends' podcasts, they say 100% nonstop. And so I'm wondering if that's where they get it from, or is it some other pretentious thing that we're not even aware of?
I have this hope and desire that John Mayer is as cool as I think he is, and he's not as douchey as the character he played in this movie. Knowing that BJ Novak is closet hilarious and just like one of the funniest, smallest people on the planet. So I'm just hoping that was a bit and not 100% them, but it definitely, like, the whole opening of this was really so New York elitist that it just rang hipster for me, and like made me not want to tell people I had a podcast for some reason. Just like,
we still don't tell people we have a podcast.
Yeah, no, it's just that not a whole lot of awareness, but just so much pretension. Like, oh.
So story time on that, because when you had asked if I'd ever met anyone like that, I've got another college NIU story. And so I had this friend that transferred over from shout out to Moraine Valley Community College, transferred over to NIU.
I'm an alumnus. The Harvard on the UCLA, university closest to LaGrange Avenue. Let's go. Let's go.
Shout out to all of those famous people out there.
All that green and whatever.
Yeah. But he had transferred over, and I was like, dude, let's go to a house party. My buddies live in a house. Let's go over there. So we go over there, and he brought his friend's roommate. And this guy was the most analytical, philosophical thinker. Like, you would think that he was born in the thinker pose, because everything this guy just pondered about. Nice guy. His name was Andrew.
Hang on. That was such a Midwestern. Nice guy. But fuck Andrew. He was a dick.
No, he was a super nice guy. It's just the reality of it was he loved to philosophize and debate about everything. Now, you could have gotten this guy super high, and there was a couple of times where he was super high, and you would think that, like, oh, he's going to chill out. He's just going to relax, go with the flow. No, it went up to the most relaxed 10 ever. And so we ended up talking about, like, hey, if they ever come out with another Terminator movie, what should the other Terminator be? And we came up with the theory that, like, there's nothing else that would work for another Terminator after Terminator 2. It has to be a liquid magma Terminator. And that's
Nope. I got the answer to that, and I'm not even high. Nanobots.
They did, and it sucked.
Liquid magma generating nanobots.
And by the way, nanobots wasn't even a thing back then.
No, it wasn't. But we have an answer now. I'm sorry that you didn't get your red hot magma.
Liquid hot magma was definitely
red hot
a thing.
Magma.
Austin Powers.
Speaking of another really short, talented person, Scott.
Oh man, a lot of nostalgia in this episode. But yeah, so back to you. Did you know of anyone from back in the day of, like, just pretension galore?
Not since high school, and I'm really happy about that.
Really, I went to high school.
Oh yeah, no, there's always those people.
Like, I didn't think that people be like that smart in high school to be.
They weren't smart. They were just pretentious. I went to a public school, so they were pretentious, but they were the thespians. They wore a little turtleneck action. They had
Ooh.
thoughts. Like, and don't get me wrong, I played in all courts in high school, right? Sports band, did a little stage work. Not that I was any good at any of it, but it was just fun, right? That's the best part about public school in a smaller district. Like, you can just do what you want. Nobody says no. But yeah, no, I definitely knew some pretentious folks, but I was the ADD hyperactive kid. So I mean, everybody's got their part. Everybody's got their part, like Breakfast Club. But
Yes.
yeah, no, as an adult, I've luckily, not luckily, I've purposefully like just kept my circle small to avoid those ponderous fucks. But yeah, no, it's it's I you sometimes wish you had that ability to think, but also I'm glad you don't have to slap yourself in the face for being just like so deep in thought that you have no action. And I feel like that's that person. And that was BJ Novak at the beginning of this movie, that he's so paralyzed by all of his introspection and his lack and almost fear of action, that then, except for womanizing, like homeboys throwing it around,
I mean, that in
offering it to a
itself.
lot of people.
Yeah. That's
Offering it.
pretty, that's pretty admirable right there for pretentious New York prick.
I mean, he's a slutty douche, but he also then is so timid, he gets guilted into going to a funeral in another state. Have you ever been guilted into going to a funeral?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, secret time.
So it wasn't I'm kind of a shy person in real life anyways. So even like regardless if it's friends, family, or whatever, if I could opt not to go to a funeral of like my immediate family, I probably would, because I'm just that shy. But at the same time, the story was in high school. My group of friends, we all hung out, and someone's grandpa passed away. And I was just like, oh, that's, sorry. But some of my friends were going, and we're all like a closely knit group. And they're like, you should go. It's like, I've never met this dude my entire life. Like, I'm sure that she's very sad that she lost her grandpa, but like, I don't think she's going to want me to show up to someone that I've never met before, And so that's my thought process back then. In some cases, that's my thought process now. Like, I'm all about supporting people, but yeah, I definitely got guilted into going, and I remember exactly what I was wearing, because I couldn't go home and change. I felt like I was dressed inappropriately, but I was wearing my Abercrombie and Fitch khakis, blue collared dress shirt, and some of those, what are those sandals where they're like, they look like shoes but they're sandals? Like, I was wearing those. Like, everyone wore them back in the day in high school.
Were you wearing mandals?
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice.
So I was wearing that, and I felt like I should not be here, and I went. Nothing happened. Nothing bad was said. No one ever was like, "What the hell are you doing here?" They were
No,
appreciative that I was there, but I was
you wore a
definitely
collared
guilted.
shirt. I mean, that's good.
Yeah,
That's good. I that's admirable. At least you wear a collared shirt. Um,
and my little punk rock little metal bead necklace.
oh,
So
I almost thought you were gonna say puka shells. I
no,
thought
I
you were
didn't do
gonna go
that.
puka shells.
That's a white person thing, not for me.
Oh, wow. Wow. No hemp
Every white
beads.
dude with frosted tips had the puka
Oh,
shell,
bye, Danny. Oh man, no, I'm definitely more of a wake than a funeral person, like immediate family only on the funeral aspect of it, right? But yeah, I'm also an opt out. Like, it's been drilled into my head that you show up to be respectful, but I show up to the wake, and usually, probably terrible to say this out loud, but I'm like, trying to think of what the time frame is on the entrance and the exit. I try and show up at convenient times, make sure you're seen, and then don't get seen leaving.
Yeah.
Because death is an uncomfortable situation. And those conversations never go well. And really, you show some love for your friends, and then the immediate family is the group that needs to really bond together. And that's for them. That's for them. And sometimes those funeral like speeches can get very awkward. Like when they have like the B team priest show up at the funeral home, I always try and peace out before the mass at the wake or the prayer at the wake. Like I'm not there for that.
Yeah. That's
Do
a family thing. That's a
yeah,
family thing.
yeah.
I don't even like being there when it's my family or relative that's there. So I get it. 100%.
So needless to say, you would not get on a flight to go to a funeral of a chick that you may have boned a few times.
It would have to be something very, very special for me to go and take a flight. I only take flights for work. I don't even take flights for family, for God's sake. Like that's just something that I've not done. I don't think I would do. And as much as I would say that, I'm a nice guy, but I'm not that nice. So I'm not making that trip. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I don't think I'd make the trip either. And I especially wouldn't make the trip to Texas.
Texas, that
Ooh.
state, that magical, magical state.
Texas, my number 2 least favorite state to visit.
So your second least favorite state, what's your first least favorite
Florida.
state? Florida?
Florida sucks. No offense. No offense, buddy.
You're telling me that Idaho is better than Florida? You're telling me that Montana?
Actually, due to recent legislation, Idaho might be the worst place ever, but I've never been there and I have no like plans. I may like stay there one overnight to check off the 50, but yeah, no. But I've been to like Wyoming and Montana and stuff. It's really pretty. It's definitely really pretty.
But you can have pretty scenery, but at the same time, like I don't know if it's Florida's got a lot going for it. There's a lot of
outside of the Reedy Creek Improvement District, there's not a lot in Florida that interests me.
Okay. I mean, you got a lot of Cuban food. You got a lot of there's a lot of diversity down. That's something I definitely like about Florida is the diversity. Something that Texas does have, but definitely not portrayed in this movie, with the exception of a cartel. And that's the only thing that's portrayed.
But this was West Texas.
True.
West Texas is a whole. Have you ever been to West Texas?
I have heard stories.
Oh my! I have been to West Texas. I've actually been to the city from Friday Night Lights. Like
Odessa, is that what it is? Or
yeah, Odessa. It is an interesting place. It's this weird, overpriced, still basic, just a whole different world. Like Austin is a cool town. Dallas is okay. Houston is this. I think Houston is probably my second favorite city. The food in Houston's amazing. It's like it's a Gulf city in a big way. I mean, obviously, but yeah, West Texas should be its own state. It's like the moon at times.
with
And the
cartels.
people are interesting. Cartels are everywhere, bro.
Yeah.
Don't you
Especially
listen
on
to
the
Fox News?
Yeah.
They come from Canada now, eh?
With Texas and how it's portrayed, obviously BJ Novak does like a very good job of throwing out those stereotypes, and the main character kind of being that elitist, pretentious snob to where like, yeah, I'm better than you. I think that's kind of a natural thing for most people that are in a suburban or even city area when you go to like a rural area like West Texas. I just have a feeling that that's always going to be the case. And I like how they bring up that perception and how they deal with it, and the people that they're aware of it in
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah, I mean Texas has its own things, right? Like it's the only state that has its own version of trucks, right? Like Texas is very Texasy, and people from Texas are just as pretentious sometimes as those northerners or those big city folk, but the majority of the people are just, good family people. And I love the way that the family is really able to connect to BJ Novak and kind of I think that this small troupe of actors that really play the family, I think it's written so well that you just root for them. And
Yeah,
that I liked that relationship and that turnabout.
I was glad that they portrayed the family as like a bunch of redneck idiots, but at the same time there's a sincerity and genuineness to their character and their just interactions and conversation, which is nice. They're not trying to like, oh, they're a completely different person in comparison to what they look like. Like, no, they're what they look like, but there's still that genuine character of them.
Yeah, yeah, no. And they were super Texasy too. And just to get this out there, just throw this out there to the world. Whataburger sucks.
I've never had it. I would think that it sucks.
I'm all about In and Out. I am not a Whataburger person. I mean, it's not terrible, but there's nothing. It's just a Texas chain, so you know how they're really proud of it. And
You know
then
what?
they are all over the place. Like they litter the landscape.
I'm gonna say I haven't even had Whataburger, but Whataburger, I bet you're better than In and Out. I'll
Oh,
go to bat
how
for you on
dare
that.
you?
In and
How
Out,
dare
the
you?
most. Once again, In and Out has made it onto this podcast, just like Dan
Oh,
Aykroyd just made it onto this podcast right now because I mentioned him. But In and
oh.
Out, most overrated fast food burgers. Fight me. The fact that they bond at Whataburger is kind of a nice thing. It's pretty funny. And you know what? The food. I've found it very cool that you got the deep fried Twinkie at the rodeo, and
Mhm.
I like that. That's how they break down those walls of Ben.
Yeah,
It's food, which is 100% accurate because that's how you do. You break bread with people, you become friends, you socialize, you get to know people a little bit more, and yeah, food. That's what brings people together.
here's a real question. Do you have an affinity for any of those fair foods that they had?
I, you know what? The only thing that stuck out to my head was the deep fried Twinkie. Do they have other ones?
Just in general, have you had any
Oh,
deep fried Twinkies or any amazing fair food like that? Deep
I
fried
have.
randomness?
I have had. I want to say it was like a Monte Cristo Cuban almost. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah.
And that was all right. It was
They deep
okay.
fried that.
Yeah, deep fry the fuck out of it.
I may have,
Um,
I don't know if you know this, but I may have, it may show that I've eaten a lot of deep fried foods. Um, and I've
they're delicious.
especially gone ham at fairs and deep fried Twinkies, while they're okay, do not hold a candle to deep fried Snickers bars,
I bet
fried
those are good.
Kool-Aid, and by far the best deep fried Oreos.
Deep fried Oreos are good. I've had
Oh,
those.
oh,
So, quick story time on this one. Deep fried
oh,
Oreo. I went on a date one time and it was a good conversation. This we weren't a match, right? But this girl, we met up at a bar and she like we're sitting there talking, we're having a good time and she said like, "Oh yeah, like I'm glad that we picked this place because they have really good deep fried Oreos." I'm like, "Oh, cool. Do you want to get an order? Let's go get some." And she's like, "No." And I'm just like, "Okay, you sure? I mean, I'll buy them." It's like, "No." Like, no, like you don't just say, oh, this place has really good deep fried Oreos. I'm glad we came here. And then just flat out fucking say, no, I don't want them. Like,
Who got there first, you or her?
I got there first.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm always there first.
I'm just saying she might have got there half an hour before you, got in, got some fucking Oreos, went back out to her car, waited, and then come back in.
No.
Hmm?
So I'll do to go back to your Midwestern type of thing. She's like, she was super nice, but fuck her. Like, you know what? She is such a weirdo, and she's so
obviously
rude.
not. Obviously not.
Well, you know, bless her heart. In other words, so.
Oh, I did love that part too, right? All of the southern that's the other thing about Texas is you not only get the Texasisms, but you get the southernisms in there too, and a little bit of Bible Belt, and all of the country situations, right? The eccentric dress of an Ashton Kutcher trying to be I don't even know what, like a fancy cowboy all in white.
Are you an Ashton Kutcher fan?
I am not a raving Ashton Kutcher fan from an acting perspective. I liked his Steve Jobs, but I'm not like, oh, I need to see the new Ashton Kutcher movie. But I like him as a person. I feel like he's like a good dude in general. Like, love him on Shark Tank when he does that. Did not realize he was so smart. Would not peg fucking what's his character in that 70s show? Kelso. I would not peg Kelso as a high quality investor, but damn. I mean, I think we all knew Ashton Kutcher just from that role for so long, and then saw him in a few movies. But yeah, no, I don't dislike him, but like him as a person, which I don't think I think of many of my favorite actors as people, but he's involved in so much and very open. Like the stuff that he posts or the stuff that he put out there with his brother and just that. Like I feel like people who are in that position and are very vulnerable and open about things like that and make it easier for the rest of the world to identify. That's why I like him, not because of a role. But yeah, I like I said, not a fan, but I enjoy him as a person.
Okay. So he would
I
be in
know
your
that's
circle of
so
friends.
it's
Like,
so random. It's so random.
What did you think about his conversation, his character's
Wait,
conversation
you
with?
can't get past the do you like Ashton Kutcher question.
Nah, I think he sucks. I don't like him. I think he was super annoying in that 70s show. I know a lot of people like that show, but I dare you to take a stopwatch and if you can get to 10 seconds without a laugh track, then you win $1 million, but you're not going to win. So that's
Well, I mean,
what bothered me about that.
It's a bad sitcom. I mean, every sitcom has a laugh track every 10 seconds. But I thought his character in this was a wonderful reflection of the pretentious Southerner versus the pretentious New Yorker. They were very much the same character, but one wore a hat.
Yeah, but he was also not from that area.
True.
So that's like, I don't even know if that's the pretentious Southerner. I think the pretentious Southerner is born and raised, belt buckle the size of your fucking head, and you're like, nope, there's no better place than Texas or whatever area that you're in, and the like, there's only one way to live, and it's the Southern way, and the Confederacy is still alive, and something to that effect.
South's gonna do it again. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
this exactly. I was looking for that phrase, I couldn't think of it, but
It's okay. I got you, buddy.
but yeah, not to say that the people in the South are. I really enjoy living in Florida because there are a lot of nice people. It's a good melting pot of culture and people. Like, I like my kids being able to have other people that aren't just white in his school classes. Like it's kind of nice because hey, this is the real world, kid. It's not just you, people that look just like you. There's different people of all different cultures. Some speak English better than others, some read better than others. It's not just strictly uniform. So when it came to like the conversation between him and BJ Novak's character, it was, huh, this guy's like a smart motherfucker. And I knew there was something about him, about that character, about what's going on. So when they were talking, I'm like, oh wow, I kind of like this Ashton Kutcher's character because he knows where he's at. He's self-aware as to what the perception is about people in Texas and the people in that area. He gets it. And so go into it, but at the same time, I'm going to spit a little bit of knowledge at you. So he gives him, the spark for his podcast, in my opinion. I know, Boyd Holbrook's character, he's in the car when he says, you know, he gets that inspiration he calls his podcast editor. But I really think Ashton Kutcher is the one who solidified as to what that was going to be about and what really started him on the journey to do the podcast of the Dead White Girl.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I thought this is part of the movie where I was just like, oh, he must be a really nice guy. Like, he's obviously grooming women, but I didn't like, I didn't catch the villain on him at the time. And maybe I wasn't paying attention for that, but yeah, I was I enjoyed that conversation, the love of the arts. I'm just trying to bring the arts to everybody, or the music to everybody. I just thought it was funny. I just
Well,
thought it was funny.
just because you're on that subject then, so like before we get to the villain, obviously, if you're watching or listening to this podcast, plenty of spoilers, but Ashton Kutcher, is he the villain? Is he really the villain in the movie? Or is it someone else? I mean, I know he's pretty responsible for the death of Abilene, but
I
is he
would
the
think that
villain?
he is. I would think that he's very much a villain in this movie.
I would say, and normally I would say you are absolutely correct. I would say that you're correct. In this, because it's independent artsy movie, BJ Novak written, directed, I actually think that his character Ben is the villain. I think he is a villain of sorts in the sense that like he doesn't know what he's doing in here, like in Texas, but at the same time, he wants to be able to profit and also become someone at other people's misfortunes by exploiting the family in Texas and just be like, you know what? I've got a great idea. I've got these stupid people, the stupid family that everything comes out of their mouth as gold because it's just so Southern and so dumb. I'm going to create a podcast and I'm going to try and capitalize on this. So I really think that he could be considered the villain of this.
I think that you miss. I think you misassign villainous in for idiocy. I think that this is a great example of a person who thinks they're worldly because they live in New York, but don't have much understanding and are just trying to force their way to some level of acceptance or fame for self-justification without really understanding what positive impact and loyalty and love and trust are. I think that that's what you're miscasting. Somebody that just is an idiot, just a little child, just a little baby. Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
So couldn't
That's the problem here, right? He's a child. He's got no bearing, and he's out there just trying to. Oh, I want to be popular so people know me. He's literally like he's a fame fucker, but he doesn't understand, right? And I think that I discount him as a villain because he takes this journey of enlightenment. So that's why I discount him as a villain. I label Ashton Kutcher as a villain because he's drugging and allowing to die many people in a very strategic and blameless way, exploiting the holes in the justice system and the problems with the area. So I think there's a lot of exploitation and grooming that goes on with Ashton Kutcher, the villain, as opposed to the idiot child Ben. Or what was his name?
Ben.
Okay,
I do agree with you that that's the case. He absolutely is exploit. He knows, like, oh, here's a place where the jurisdiction, like things just kind of go away because no one wants to take control of it. But I will say, so, and you bring up a good point, is, just because his ignorance is at display, like, so let me rephrase. Just because he is ignorant doesn't mean he's immune to committing crimes, which, by the way, he flat out murdered somebody.
I would say that he gave retribution to his character in a way and is almost a hero. How many lives did he save?
I'm not disputing the fact that he is at face value the protagonist in the movie. Right?
That's a big word. You're gonna have to simple it down, or else I'm just gonna think you're
the
insulting.
good guy. The good guy. At face value, he's the good guy because he's the main character. Every movie, the main character is a good guy, right? But I will say, he's a good guy. He's the protagonist. He's trying to.
He's a bad guy.
Well, he's
a bad guy, Danny.
He's the bad guy. He's not a bad guy. But no, seriously, like you've got BJ Novak's character who goes there under false pretense, stays with a family, exploits them for a podcast, decides to murder someone in cold blood and flee the state and basically just get the hell out of there, delete any evidence of anything happening. You tell me that that's not a crime? I mean, we have a certain president that is under arrest for far less than murdering someone. So
crime is a crime. Felony is a felony, buddy. Felony is a felony.
True. So what about murder? You don't think murder was
a
crime?
case that they gave me? But unfortunately, nobody's gonna prosecute that murder. So I think that I think that your focus on exploitation when he deleted all the podcasts. So in the end, there was no exploitation.
He didn't delete all the podcasts.
Yeah, he did.
No. He published the podcast, and the only thing that was not released was the audio from the conversation with Ashton Kutcher.
Oh, there was a scene where he deleted everything at the end.
The episode or the audio files where he was recording with Ashton Kutcher's.
He deleted that, and then he went in the folder where she said all the stuff was and deleted all that too.
I think you might want to check that out again because there's still files that remain after that.
Oh, I was under the impression he deleted everything.
Yeah. No, he went back and did his podcast. So I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure that that's the case. Like, he deleted the files that incriminated him and also incriminated Ashton Kutcher's character.
I was under the impression he deleted everything. I'm sure somebody in the comments will tell us how wrong we are and how we don't know what we're doing and we should do a lot of research. No. So I welcome those comments. Bring them on.
Well, but we all know who's going to be right on this one because Mark does not have the best track record going into this so far. So,
yeah. So my interpretation of the movie was that he deleted everything, therefore restoring his character and achieving the vengeance that the brother wanted.
Okay, so fine, but if that is the case, still murder in the court of law?
there is such a thing as justifiable homicide.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not it. Pretty sure
Luckily,
that's
there's
not
no
it.
lawyers to prosecute it.
Yeah, but no. In all seriousness, though, you don't feel that there is a slight degree of negligence and slight degree of murder that happened, and you still feel that. And here's another thing. Let me put it to you this way: do you still feel that he's such a good guy that he can shoot someone in the head point blank and then just go off, have breakfast the next morning, and then just go off? You don't think there's like some messed up, you know, brainwaves in his head? The fact that he just murdered someone, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go grab some bacon and hash browns, and then I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna delete some shit first, but then I'm gonna go home.
I think that there's a lot of messed up stuff with him from the beginning of the movie, the whole time, right? He's got this this hunger for justification and support through others, which is, you know, a weird, not weird, it's a very common thing, but he doesn't see value in himself. He needs others to see value in him.
Sure.
But he also sees the lack of value in Ashton Kutcher still living, and I think feels this attachment to this girl that he took advantage of a few times, and also has such a love for her family that he feels justified and honestly happy that he's able to give the brother that very much overlooked a lot of his flaws and gave him you know, gave him quote unquote brotherly love, the closure that's really needed.
Isn't that self-righteousness and wanting to do justice for self-service a flaw in his character, and once again painting him in a bad light?
There's no perfect protagonist, right? Who's perfect in any movie?
Someone who doesn't murder someone.
I
You're
mean,
you're gonna die on this hill. You're
I'm
not
not
gonna say
dying
like,
on the
no,
hill.
he's a good guy. He's
The
a good
guy
guy.
committed murder,
Yeah,
but
that's my point though. He's not as much of a good guy at face value. If you're not paying attention to laws, ethics, morals, he's not a bad guy. You factor that stuff in, and he's like, wow, this guy's a fucking nutcase murderer from New York who made a podcast, and now he's just fleeing the state of a crime. Granted, that family gets their justice, but who is he to serve that justice?
who is Batman to serve that justice?
At least he does it in an anonymous, and he doesn't, flee the scene saying that like I was never there, I didn't do it. Batman's never like, oh, I didn't beat the shit out of those guys. Batman's like, I beat the shit out of those guys. I'm a vigilante. He, and I'm pretty sure that he would think this, BJ Novak's character Ben thinks he is a hero because he got some justice for this girl who he fell in love with after the fact and her family. And I think it's just under, false pretense, and it's not as noble as it seems.
I agree that it's not clean, but I also think that it may have saved or helped other people in the
Sure it
future.
did. Absolutely it did. I mean, I know the brother, who's a couple cans short of a six pack, was ecstatic. He's like, I'm gonna get you those hash browns and the bacon, and I'll throw in some eggs too. Like, I know he was super excited. And he was like, let's get some syrup. Let's go crazy. Let's put up it in our hair. What do you think keeps it up at the end of the week, stud?
I mean,
It's just
who doesn't love Waffle House, my man? That's the one thing in Texas that I will say I love is Waffle House.
well, they're in Florida too. A lot of states have them.
Not a lot in Florida.
There's a ton in Florida.
There are now. Either way. Love me some
Man.
Waffle House. Waffle House is my
Yeah.
favorite.
It's not bad. Not bad.
During the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. After that, Waffle House gets a little questionable.
I think you just don't take enough risks.
I don't want to get shot in the head. But yeah, I think it's really interesting the the way that we feel differently. I don't know if it's differently, but the way that you really highlight the murdery part of the movie when I look at it as the vengeancey part of the movie. So
I get it. And you know, I'm the reason why I take this stance is because I think this is the type of movie that encourages that type of view and analysis on it. You know, you go see Avengers or something like that. There's pretty much one way to look at it. As much as I love Marvel movies, there's one way to look at it. There's the good guy, there's the bad guy, and then there's maybe a character that does a little bit of the gray area work. Maybe. But here, it's a lot of gray area for all of those people. You got a family that you can take a look at the moms like, really? Is the mom doing a good thing by raising their kids under these certain circumstances, everyone having guns? Like, you'll take a look at that. Is that negligence on the parents' part? Other people would be like, you know what? That's our right by the
America.
Constitution. Yeah, you could, America, whatever. Let's wear some cut off jean shorts as a family. Let's go shooting. You know, that's what it is. But you know, I think that's why I like these types of movies, because there's intricacy, and it causes you as a viewer, or it gives you the option as a viewer to think from different lenses. And who knows, maybe the villain is his podcast editor, because
That's
she's
it.
like, fucking exploit those bastards. Like, those guys are nutbags. Go ahead. I will edit this stuff. We will make a lot of money. You just keep recording.
Mhm.
Don't let them shut up. Keep recording.
I just like the complexity of this movie. And when I found it, I reached out to you and said, dude, you should watch this movie. We should talk about it, because I really, not just the podcast angle, but I feel like as little pub as it got, right? And the IMDb rating at like 6.8 and Metacritic at 65, like it on as a surface view, I don't know that it looks all that impressive. BJ Novak, while those of us that watch The Office really appreciate him, he's not like this star, right? And he's not this amazing writer. Again, those of us that watch The Office really appreciate him. But I really enjoyed this movie. I think that it captured so much of the dark side of human nature, the gray area that we all walk in strenuous or situations that are outside of our comfort zones, and you know, the ways that people can be so deceitful and underhanded, and just the reality of that. And I don't think I've seen a movie like this that in a while, right? The movies that just everything lately just, oh, it's a happy note. Look, Maverick has a family at the end of Top Gun. It doesn't matter that Goose is dead anymore, right? Like all of these happy ending movies now are the thing, right? All these Marvel movies. Oh, Thanos is dead. We're good. Everybody's happy. Thor's a little chubby, but that's okay. Um, but yeah, I really enjoy the fact that it ends on such a downer, man, and then leaves you with this weird happiness or acceptance of this, crime.
I think for when I was originally going into this, as I saw the cast list, I was like, I kind of don't want to review this movie, because I don't think this really fits into our brand. I didn't realize I know I saw the preview a while back, but I didn't realize it was about a podcaster. I was like, oh, okay, well, I
Uh-huh.
can relate to that. But the only reason that I agreed is because I saw Boyd Holbrook's name in it, and I was like, oh, cool. He was one of the Reavers in Logan, so that's comic book related. We're good. Um, I liked his character in this, and he plays such a redneck to the T, but he
Yeah.
plays it so good. It's I like him as an actor. You know, him in Narcos was fantastic in that. Logan, I liked his character. I mean, he kind of is the same in every movie. He was also in the Predator movie, which was unfortunate, but I did
Any
like
Predator
him.
without Arnold is unfortunate.
There were some that were okay. There were some that were okay, but uh, yes, that was my comic book connection, if you will. I despise Ashton Kutcher. Ever since Punked, I was like, yeah, I am not a fan of this guy. But John Mayer, I also don't like. But by the way, John Mayer is as cool as you think he is, because if Dave Chappelle allowed him to be on his show, he's got to be pretty damn
Yeah,
cool.
no, I both like his music and feel like he would be awesome. I have to defend Ashton Kutcher with one movie and ask you if you've seen it.
Nope,
Have you seen The Guardian?
nope.
That Kevin Costner and Ashton Kutcher.
I don't. You know what? I don't dispute the fact that he's probably a good actor and he's a good guy. I am just I can't get over Dude, Where's My Car? That 70s show, Punked. I can't.
I love that movie.
I just no.
Dude, yeah.
I saw it in theaters. No. I'm not a fan of his.
That movie. Oh,
Awful.
I can't even tell you how many times I put that movie on at Ye Old Hollywood Video. Oh, such a classic. Classic. I don't even know if you could watch that movie anymore. Is it even out there?
um who cares? I don't know,
Oh.
not me. That's for sure. You know what, man? If there's ever a bet on the podcast that you win, you should pick that, because it would be utter torture for me.
Oh, it's on HBO Max. Game on.
God. God. But no, so this movie had like great writing, great dialogue. I thought, you know, we talked about that initial scene with John Mayer and BJ Novak, but Boyd Holbrook's interactions with the character of Ben, like, it was so tight, in the sense that, like, yes, this New Yorker is trying to get this redneck moron, like, kind of wrangled in, and
Yeah.
on the opposite side of the coin, the redneck is trying to get, like, I'm gonna get this city slicker to fucking hunt down and avenge my sister's death. And so like, each one of them thinks that, oh, I'm in control of the situation. And I like the duality of that, because yeah, it's just good writing, good characters, good playing off of each other, very well executed.
I agree. I
Hey,
concur.
to be a little bit morbid, but just because this movie, I always like to ask a question about what happens in the movies. But have you ever known someone that's been murdered or overdosed?
Um, I haven't been directly affected by casualties of those two situations. I know of people, or like, played football with or went to high school with, but like never a really close close acquaintance that's lost their life to that. um I
Well,
definitely think that it's an absolutely crazy epidemic, and have a lot of, like, I know a lot of people affected, but never had to deal with that as a loss of life reason.
well, let me ask you this. So you had said that you someone you played football with. So, like, this was a friend at one point, or
I mean, a not a deep friend.
okay. The reason why I asked that is because there's someone that I do know that died from an overdose, and we used to hang out, like, almost maybe every other day, if not every day, 5 days out of the week, during like junior high or something. He
Mhm.
overdosed, and I have a hard time calling anybody friend, anyways, but we were definitely friends at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out well after the fact that he had overdosed. And I was like, oh man, that's a bummer. And because I want to say 2 out of our group of like 5 friends that hung out died for one reason or another. Very, very young, tragic, and it's just like, wow, that's a bummer. But it didn't affect me as much because, like, we were so far removed of being friends. Like, we just, you know, grew apart over the years. So it's I'm always curious as to like what people think of and how I know it affects certain people different than others, but yeah, I mean, when you bring it back to this movie of someone who died of an overdose and like, yeah, they hooked up a couple times, like this person, it didn't affect that much. He's like, I don't know, maybe I think I know this person. Um, but he still feels compelled to go out there. So just curious what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, it's I feel very fortunate that I haven't had to deal with that directly. But definitely know people that have been affected by addiction, and it is a crazy situation. And yeah, have a lot of respect for both, those that are able to get through that and those suffering from it. Um, and I'm very, very lucky that I just, didn't find myself in those crowds at that. I feel like it's such a, especially with the stuff that's out there now, like it's such a wild card. And maybe that's why I'm lucky I didn't grow up in a rural town where there's not much else to do. Like, I was busy. I had just shit going on all the time. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like it's something that affects a lot of people. So it definitely pulls at the heartstrings, and paints the female protagonist in this movie, or the inspiration, right? The muse, in such a different light, right? They try and villainize the memory of this girl who was struggling, in ways that everybody struggles. You don't move home from New York because everything's okay, right? But it's, at least from my eyes, right? But who knows? Um, yeah, I think that's definitely another emotional level and another complexity to this movie that I really enjoyed. Like, it really made it like a quality movie in my eyes.
I think there is that level of depth where, for me, I appreciate all of it, but at the same time, when you connect everything together, that's the problem with a dark comedy, right? Most people, you either want to feel really good about something, or you want
Yep.
to watch a movie that's a super fucking bummer, you know? And when you have the back and forth, you get conflicted, or you can be conflicted as a viewer, because like, oh, I think I'm having a little too much fun, but this person overdosed, or this person was murdered, or this person got shot in the head, or this person is making fun of these people in this geographical area. It's
Mhm.
like you kind of go back and forth on it. So I like the complexity of it, but at the same time, I can understand why this is a movie that a lot of people haven't necessarily seen, or who have given a 6.8 on IMDb, 81 on Rotten Tomatoes, and 65 on Metacritic. It's kind of that polarizing
Yeah.
effect. 81% on Rotten Tomatoes, though. It's you know those movie critics, they do love them some indie movies. So
Yeah. This was a good indie movie. This is one of the better indie movies I've seen in a while, in my opinion.
no, it was good. It was good. Which I guess leads us to the question of the episode. Mark, can you do this all day?
So the movie's heavy, and I don't know if it's a like, oh, I'm gonna watch this all the time, but I would go back to this movie. I would go back to this movie. I plan on it. I'm gonna make my wife watch it. One, because she loves murder podcasts, but two, because I think that the acting is good, the storyline's great. And I feel like, I mean, even as we discuss the end of the movie, there's so much depth to this that I feel like it's another one that as you watch it, you see more hints and foreshadowing. And I've really enjoyed the writing. So yeah, this is a yes for me. This is a yes for me. This is one I'm glad I found. But conversely, Mr. I hate Ashton Kutcher and murderers are bad. Can you do this movie all day?
Murderers are bad, right? I mean, that's not a secret, right? That's pretty much a consensus that murderers are bad. Um, but so I will say that I enjoy myself a bummer movie. I enjoy myself some dark comedy because I feel like that's my everyday life. I have the ability to go back and forth between a serious conversation, throw in some humor, go down the depths of hell and talk about something dark and dreary. Um, but I will say that I did have a few issues with it. And the reasoning for it is because of the whole pretentious talk down about a certain geographical area or certain type of stereotype of family. I get it. There's some good humor in that. But at the same time, I think with the storyline and how analytical I appreciate it to be, where you can point out that Ben as a character is kind of a shitty guy and he murdered someone, but also that family kind of shitty because they were willing to go murder someone. Now, granted, it's retaliation for what they believe was murder, but I think that's also what stuck out to me the most is this isn't Batman, right? These are just normal people that are pursuing something for their own personal gain. And one of them is because of a podcast. One of them is literally pursuing this because of a podcast. Um, so that doesn't sway my opinion about what I think of if I can do it all day, but I just like to point out the depth and the complexities of it, but also it's not that deep because when you look at it face value, there's you got some murderers, you got some bad people, you got some cartel people. But long story short, I cannot do this all day simply because of the fact that I think I've already figured out the complexities and viewed it from different analytical views. So I'm good. I'm glad I watched it. I watched it, like 1.5 times because I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But I think I'm good on it for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if I never pick this up ever again. But if someone ever asked me about it, I would say, yeah, check it out. But me personally, cannot do this all day.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. A yes and a recommend, just not for me again. Surprise, surprise. Danny hates a movie.
I'm surprised you said yes because you like movies that make you feel good. Well, just the main character executed someone. So I don't know.
mean, he shot the bad guy in the head. That made me feel good.
The supposed bad guy. Supposed bad guy.
His interpretation.
Or did the bad guy get away?
He ain't getting nowhere.
But well, I thought that was a really cool discussion about a very cool independent movie. If you want to check it out, it's on Amazon Prime. It's called Vengeance. Don't watch the Nicolas Cage movie or the other dozen movies that are called Vengeance.
Or do.
BJ
Also,
Novak, 2022.
Also, if you're flying United anytime soon, it's in there too. Fly the friendly skies.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, thank you all so much for all of our listeners. And thanks for all of those people that are helping support us and communicating and commenting on social media, even those people that aren't so great. We love it all. As a matter of fact, I welcome it. So until next time, this is Dan, the part-time Avenger. That's Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Like, subscribe, comment, be nice, bring the hate. We don't care. Let's go. See you on the next one.